Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Lakshmi Nrsinga Jaya, Lakshmi Nrsinga Jaya, Lakshmi Nrsinga Jaya, Lakshmi Nrsinga. Jaya Prahlad Nrsinga Jaya, Prahlad Nrsinga Jaya, Prahlad Nrsinga Jaya, Prahlad Nrsinga. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Madhava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, I'll speak in English. Braucht jemand eine Übersetzung? Schon da, okay, danke, super. I just asked if someone wanted a translation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, Hare Krishna and good morning. It's wonderful to see so many vibrant people here. Last time the bus tour came, it started to rain, and it happened again last night. Oh, you're right, it was sunny the whole day. And suddenly at this moment, thunder and lightning. So I think the demigods were happy. Okay, so we are reading from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11, called Sambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj, and text 31. It's a very interesting topic about anger today. One of my favorite topics. So, okay. I'm Gopigita, by the way, for those who don't know me. There's a few familiar faces. Yogamaya, who kindly sang. I don't know if it embarrassed her or not by saying that 12 years ago we were actually in the ashram together for a long period of time. How is it possible? You have to ask her. Okay. So, the verse is up there. We begin word by word. Okay. Samyacha. Just control. Rosam. Sorry. Anger. Bhadram. All good fortune. Te. To you. Pratipam. Enemy. Shreyasham. Of all goodness. Param. The foremost. Shrutena. By hearing. Uyasha. Constantly. Rajan. My dear king. agadena, by medicinal treatment. Yata, as amayam, disease. Line by line. Samyacha dosham bhadram te. Samyacha dosham bhadram te. Samyacha dosham bhadram te. Pratipam shreya samparam. Shutena puya sharajan. Shutena puya sharajan. Agadena yatamayam. Agadena yatam. Agadena yatamayam. Prabhus? Samyachara sambhadramte. Pratipam shreya samparam. Yacharo sambhadramte. Vaishnavis?
Samyacharo sambhadramte. Pratipam shreya samparam. Shutena bhuya sarajan. Agadena yatamayam. Samyacharo sambhadramte.
Pratipam shreya samparam.
Shutena bhuya sarajan.
Agadena yatamayam. Samyacharo sambhadramte.
Pratipam shreya samparam. Shutena bhuya sarajan. Agadena yatamayam.
Okay, translation. My dear king, just consider what I have said to you, which will act as medicinal treatment upon disease. Control your anger, for anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. I wish all good fortune for you. Please follow my instructions. Purport. Dhruv Maharaj was a liberated soul. Sorry, just to run through because most of you haven't been here for the daily readings. So we're just this part in Srimad Bhagavatam where Swambhuva Manu is advising Dhruv Maharaj after his brother has been killed. So many different advice has been given, but this moment he's telling him about his anger. Purport. Dhruv Maharaj was a liberated soul, and actually he was not angry with anyone. But because he was the ruler, it was his duty to become angry for some time in order to keep law and order in the state. His brother Uttama was without fault, yet he was killed by one of the yakshas. It was the duty of Dhruva Maharaj to kill the offender, life for life, because Dhruv was the king. When the challenge came, Dhruva Maharaj fought vehemently and punished the yaksha sufficiently. But anger is such that if one increases it, it increases unlimitedly. In order that Dhruv Maharaj kingly anger not exceed the limit, Manu was kind enough to check his grandson. Dhruv Maharaj could understand the purpose of his grandfather, and he immediately stopped the fighting. The words Shrutena Bhuyasha, by constantly hearing, are very important in this verse. By constantly hearing about devotional service, one can check the force of anger, which is detrimental to the process of devotional service. Srila Parikshit Maharaj said that the constant hearing of the pastimes of the Lord is the panacea. Someone knows what that means? Panacea. What does that mean, Prabhu?
Cure.
Okay, so basically the constant hearing of the pastimes of the Lord is the cure or panacea for all material diseases. Everyone, therefore, should hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. By hearing, one can always remain in equilibrium, and thus his progress in spiritual life will not be hampered. Dhruv Maharaj's becoming angry with the miscreants was quite appropriate. There is a short story in this connection about a snake who became a devotee upon instruction by Narad, who instructed him not to bite anymore. Since ordinarily a snake's business is to fatally bite other living entities, as a devotee he was forbidden to do so. Unfortunately, people took advantage of this non-violence on the part of the snake, especially children, who began to throw stones at him. He did not bite anyone, however, because it was instruction of his spiritual master. After a while, when the snake met his spiritual master Narada, he complained, "I have given up the bad habit of biting innocent living entities, but they are mistreating me by throwing stones at me." Upon hearing this, Narada Muni instructed him, "Don't bite, but do not forget to expand your hood as if you were going to bite. They will go away." Similarly, a devotee who is always non-violent, he is qualified with all good characteristics. But in the common world, when there is mischief made by others, he should not forget to become angry, at least for the time being, in order to drive away the miscreants. Translation once more. "My dear king, just consider what I have said to you, which will act as medicinal treatment upon disease. Control your anger, for anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. I wish all good fortune for you. Please follow my instructions." Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sati Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So those who usually attend a class I give know that I make it a little interactive. Today we speak about anger. I was told by a little birdie that some of you have to come to the class today, as opposed to want to come to the class. So that means a little bit of a difficult audience. But thank you that you listened. You came. Those of you who know me a little bit will know that I look over the Mataji ashram here, over devotee care, and also look over the youth. Don't know, still consider myself young, so I know what that means. And part of what we have to deal with, just a show of hands, who grew up in Krishna consciousness? Wow. Also. Okay, amazing. Yes, amazing. So I always make this sort of point that sometimes what we deal with isn't as simple as it appears. It's not like we grew up with Krishna conscious and therefore everything is self-explanatory. Also, the movement in one sense is quite young. Those of you, I think you're all in like early 20s, mid-20s, something like this. So 20 years ago as well, ISKCON as a movement was very strict. So some of you grew up also with a very strict childhood, some of you not so much. And part of the movement as we move forward in our modern life sort of changes with the flow of what we're doing. So for example, when I grew up, anger, as this verse talks about, anger was just not allowed. Just don't show any anger. You're not allowed. Here it says, control your anger, for anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. Later on, it says in this verse that if anger is such that if one increases, it increases unlimitedly. So often, sometimes we hear something and we're told, okay, anger, this is the worst path, the worst thing that you can have on your path. So just don't do it. Just don't be angry. But sometimes life's not so easy. Sometimes something comes up and we're angry. And there are certain verses which like this one shows that anger in moderation is basically how we live our lives. Yeah? So in this way, Dhruv Maharaj as the king, it was his duty to be angry because his brother had been killed. But when the anger exceeded, sort of grandfather Swabhuva Manu steps in. So we have this sort of moderation. We had this sort of famous ISKCON devotee. I think her name is Seva. Someone help me out. Seva. Who is? You were not here, Narayani. I'm looking at you like you should know what her name is. Anyway, she spent 2 days talking about anger and the different sort of aspects that we deal with. If Shingadev's just about to come out. By the way, the boys making the move, was this Nishingadev today? A new dance move? Trademark, copyright, showing his anger. This is like a form. Prahlad Lakshmi Nishingadev ki jai. So in this moment where Nishingadev shows his anger, it's sort of allowed anger. Generally, when we have to use violence, you need some anger. Someone's about to kill you and you say, excuse me, it'd be better if you don't do it. It's not going to work, right? So in the same way, Nishingadev is attacking Hiranyakashipu. It's a ferocious type. It's a ferocious type of anger that comes up. So one can say, was anyone in a situation where they had to use violence to stop the situation? None of you. Oh, Prabhu at the back. Do you want to expand? Not your finest moment. So I'll give an example, right? So when I was 18 years old on a London bus, that's where I'm from, and some kids sort of my age were really bullying maybe a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. They were really on his case. So I was like waiting, and this kid was getting more and more sort of, he was a boy, he was about to cry or what was going to happen. So the anger just sort of let loose. I started yelling at these boys and said, who did they think they were? He's a kid, younger than them. They should get off his case. What's the matter? La, 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 la. They did stop. It was like maybe justified anger. My friends told me it was a bit of a foolish thing to do because I was one single lady with like 7, 8 other boys who were much tougher and stronger than me. But in that level, sometimes the anger comes out. I don't know if it's just my nature, though. I've been in a few situations like that. Some man was beating up his wife, and I stepped in. And so meaning that sometimes this sort of violent form of anger comes out. As you can see, I have not a lot of muscle, so it's not that I'm really going to beat anyone up. But in that moment, yeah, exactly. In that moment, it may be justified as to what is needed. So sort of violence. Meaning we have ahimsa, meaning non-violence. So it's not that I am saying that one needs to be angry. But again, if you're in a country where people are attacking devotees or anything, you may need to somehow stop in the place. You'll see here I have the word anger. Here is reacting. Prabhu at the back said it wasn't his finest moment. So sometimes it can be like, it doesn't mean that we use the fist, but someone what do you say? They started it. They started it, right? So he began it, and you wanted to end it. So, or it could just be that you held a whole load of abuse at this person. Did anyone feel better maybe for 10 seconds. Am I talking too fast or is it okay? Okay? Okay. Right. So this is the reacting, which is usually what we say we shouldn't do. The middle one I've labeled as processing, so processing anger. And the last one is repression. Grew up in a Gujarati background, and I would say most of the time in the form of religion, we repressed anger. We repressed anger. So someone does something, like that makes you really, really fume, and you're like, it's okay, I'm all right, don't worry. And you say, please forgive my offenses, and then you're not sure if you made any, and you carry on, right? So you sort of push down that emotion. Huh? So this is labeled in the repression. So this is the biggest area here, processing. Does anyone have an example where they were very angry at us in a situation, very angry, and somehow they didn't react straight away, but they took some time out and processed the situation? What are you told now? Yeah, you? Do you have a...
But yeah, just in like a domestic case, me and my sister, when we were younger, we used to pick fights with each other. And she used to know how to get on my nerves very often. So in the instance where she would get me to the point, and I had like a few anger issues as a kid, to the point where I felt like I was going to actually, like start pushing back and get physical, I would just walk away. I might be like a little angry, I had tears in my eyes, but I just walked away. And sometimes I would go and just like hit something. I'd go and hit like a box or something that I could, vent that anger to, but not, express it to the person.
This is a very nice example. Thank you. What's your name?
Mirabai.
Mirabai. Wow, amazing name. Mirabai. So Mirabai gave this nice example of she processed, even as a young person. She went away, stepped away. That's what they actually say. Walk away from the situation, take a deep breath. But then the emotion that's come out, it has to be let out somewhere. If you're pushing it down, in sort of modern health, they say it actually can lead to depression, right? So letting it out, hitting a non-living object, like a cushion or something that won't hurt yourself. Yeah? So it's a way of processing. Some other examples? We have our Shaman Nandini here who just arrived. We just speak about this topic of anger, huh? Don't worry. And I just speak of examples that sometimes in life we maybe have wanted to react better, but maybe we were violent, either physically or with words. But the process that we talk about now is how to process what's going on with us. Repression. Let's talk about repression. Huh? Someone did something very horrible to me, very horrible. And I say to them, okay, I'm very angry, but it's my karma. I probably deserved it, so I'm fine. I'm good with it, huh? Yeah? Good idea? You're fine with it? Fine. It was you who did that bad thing. I'm fine with it. No problem. No problem. Do it again. It's all right, yeah? So this is an example of pushing it down, yeah? Pushing it down. Now, often that emotion comes out. I mean, I've looked over the ladies' ashram for quite some years now, but before that I was in devotee care. And I had an open day when I was in the office. It's a bit of a different story, but Mondays was the day you could come in and talk about any problems that you might be going through. So actually it was meant to be finance related, but anyway. So people would come in with their problems, brahmacharis, prabhus, matajis, whatever sort of problems. Most people have issues that they're dealing with in life. It just is the nature of spiritual life. When we start this process of bhakti yoga, there is also a part where naturally things may come out and we need to express it. It's not that in the process of Krishna consciousness, everything is so sublime and amazing. In a kirtan, everything it's nice, right? But often some other side comes out. And I think one part of it, one reason sometimes that we are not able to transcend, is because this processing of whatever it may be, and especially if it's anger, doesn't necessarily happen in the way that it should happen. Now, processing is a very interesting experience, because I can see people are thinking, but we're drawing up a little bit. I'll go into it a little bit more. In the situation of Dhruv Maharaj, he had to be angry. It said he wasn't really angry at anyone, but he had to be in order to defend his brother. But when one acts on that anger, it just gets... I don't know if you've had it, someone venting at you. I'm so angry at this person, and this, and they did this, and this, and this. And 2 hours later, they're still angry. They're still venting. They're still... Sometimes it can just be 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm so angry, la, 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 la. And then the other person listens, and they say, I feel better now. But often it's not that case. It's often do you know what? She did it again. Again she did it. How could she do that to me? Again, right? Damn. You know, and this is an example where it just goes over the limit. Now, processing is very different. Often, if you go to people within our movement, there are people like, or gurus like Mahatma Prabhu, who does a wonderful course on forgiveness. I often wonder if he does this course forgiveness as a way also of overcoming the anger, because there are many techniques that he uses, examples from Prabhupada, or different things that other people did. For example, journaling and expressing, writing down. I'm going to just start making my own notes here. Journaling, how many of you journal here, like write down, ladies? Some Prabhus, journaling. Yeah, sometimes sometimes more Matajis I know seem to write. I don't know, do you have another way? You have another way of going through or reflecting what's happening? I'm looking at you because I know you. I actually know both of you, Yogi. You also know. Oh, thank you. He stepped in. Thank you. Mirabai.
I found also that if you feel anger or some negative emotion, if you listen to something calming or soothing, then it helps you to release it, and it uplifts your mood.
Okay, so what do you mean? What?
Like, for instance, if you're feeling very angry and stressed out and you listen to a very soothing kirtan, it can help you forget about the problem and just relax and soothe yourself. Or do something calming, I don't know, like sitting by a river or something. It's like let it go. Going on a walk, yeah. In other words, balancing out that intense negative energy with something calming and positive, kind of.
Balancing. So actually we have a little bit two different ways of doing it, almost opposite, but both seem to work. One is like venting the anger out, punching a pillow, punch something, non-moving, like let that anger out. And Prabhu, what's your name, sorry? Sandipani. Sandipani, he gives this example of doing the opposite. You're angry, so go off, diffuse. Diffuse, like an air diffuser. Diffuse your anger. Diffuse. So diffusing. Diffusing the anger by going off maybe into nature or listening to music or something that just brings out that other side. It could be that you're in nature and you feel the anger even more. What do you do then, Sandipani? What do you do? You don't get angry much. Doesn't come out. It works for you. Okay, so this works for you.
Someone's nature is to get mad in nature, then go to the city.
Prabhu's wife just told me there was some mad thing that happened in England not so recently. Some person, I mean, not in the city, but in the suburbs, he was mentally unstable, took his anger out by taking his knife out and killing all the people around him. Maybe the only one from England. I was like a little shocked. She just told me yesterday. So generally, I've seen it. I've been going to work. I used to work in the borough of Barnet, if you know, near the manor. And sometimes I would walk and I'm looking, I'm like, is it me or this lady talking to herself? What's wrong? She looks really angry. Why is she talking to her? And I'm like, maybe it's just me, I'm tired. So like, I'm standing there and she's really talking to herself. You know, a lot of mad people. I don't see so many of those here, unless it's obvious. So I don't know if I would recommend going to a city. I would say maybe come away from a city. Yeah? Some people I know, even ladies, we had here also a boxing bag with boxing gloves. They were letting out on this way. Yeah, it was in the barn. We're a little bit modern here, I think. Yeah. So there was, I think maybe it's even still here.
Speaking it out to
Speaking out.
to close friends.
Okay. So we're like, technical instruction, revealing one's mind in confidence. So we're like, you're not going to everybody, but just some few who will maybe understand where you're coming from. Has it ever happened to you? You've gone to the wrong person and you start telling them and they're like, I don't know what your problem is. And you're like, oh God, and then you're even more fired up.
Relating to his point, it's like the English saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. So sometimes if you feel angry or stressed out and you have a friend who can help you, then within a few minutes you feel better. Why?
Okay, very nice. And how do you choose? Oh, sorry, bro.
Maybe another way is to use the energy from the anger to do something productive.
Oh,
like,
can you give me an example? That's
I don't know, like clean your room. You're so angry.
If you're very angry, you might just throw everything out of the room. At that moment.
Like use the energy to get things done.
Positive use of energy. Yeah, like boxing. Yeah, anger. Okay. Gym. I mean, I do know somebody. She was a cook, and she said the best thing for her when she felt any emotion was just to start cooking things. So it's very important to know what your strengths are also in spiritual life, because it can change. If you tell me to cook when I'm angry, you're not going to get anything edible, for example. I'm not going to be like this. But like one former TP, I asked him, what do you do? You know, like sometimes I sit there like as a secretary and hear people yelling at him. I'm like, what do you do in this scenario? What is it? He's like, I go in front of Lord Nishingadev and sing kirtan. And I'm like, it works? He said, yeah, it works for me every time. So it's very good to know what works for you. Gita, please.
I think also japa is a good thing.
Japa?
Sometimes you don't have a friend, but you always have Krishna. He's always there. And like japa can like calm you and in every ways. And also, it's just, it works for me and probably for other people.
That's really nice. Once I had someone in the ashram tell me, I was so angry, I spent 4 hours chanting, and I just thought about that person. And I was just like, oh. So it's very good if you use the japa, but it's always very nice if you make that prayer beforehand, maybe to the Lord. I'm not feeling quite right, feeling quite angry. I would like to shift this emotion. Please, Krishna, Nishingadev, accept this japa for you, to try to put it aside. I asked a few people on this advice, what do you do if your mind is preoccupied with something and you sit down to chant? Like, do you just continue to chant, or what do you do? The best advice I could say, and it worked for me, is you put your japa aside just for those minutes, and then you try to pray out or try to let that emotion out in some way, so that when you're chanting, your rounds are as attentive as they can be, right? So that emotion might still be there. It's sometimes in anger we might be like, I'm helpless. I don't know why I'm even angry at this moment, but please, Krishna, help me. And that helplessness can we chant very nicely. Yeah? So nice that it works for you, Gita. It's very nice, huh? So many different people. Sandipani. Oh, question. Question's always good, I think. Could you mind to use the microphone? Because we always have an audience online, and then they don't hear you. It's just like a blank.
Do you think, I was thinking about this, but I'm not sure if it's a form of repression or some kind of escaping from the problem. But sometimes, when you have a critical mindset, you are recommended to think about the same person or situation, but meditate on the positive things. So if you're angry with a person, would that be a good solution also? To meditate on their good qualities? Or is that repression?
No, actually it's in, for example, Mahatma Prabhu's forgiveness course. At the beginning, it might be hard to meditate on the positive qualities, but later on, as it developed, the idea of meditating, first you meditate on the positive qualities, and also you try to... Okay, let's rewind a bit. So when there is a problem that's going on for you, when you have a problem with somebody, one of his suggestions is that you write down your story. Like, what's your view? What happened? What's going on for you? And then later you try to see their perspective of what happened, of where they were coming from, what was going on, for them. So it was like a whole level of sort of trying to put yourself in their shoes. And in that moment, then you can then also go on to see the positive qualities. So yeah, it's not a positive quality. One thing that we haven't spoken about, these are all very nice examples. There's a lot of indirect approaches. Now, what's your name, Prabhu? Gopal. So Gopal came along and he did something very terrible. Yeah. He went to all the Matajis and said, none of you should go to Gopigita's class. Huh? It's terrible. Like, just don't go, She doesn't like Matajis, just don't attend her. So none of the Matajis attend her. And I'm like angry, right? I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, it's okay. He's only here for 2 days. He anyway goes. And other people attend her. Could be like this. Or I could choose a direct approach. Calm down. It's all right. I'm fine if there's just a few people in class. Get nervous if there's so many of you like today. So, and I say, Gopal, could we speak for a few moments? And then he's like a little, maybe nervous, or maybe not. He's like, yeah, no problem, let's talk. So I said, Gopal, why did you say that to the ladies? Why did you tell them that? So I'm already calm. I'm not like yelling at him, like, who do you think you are? La, 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 la. So I'm already calm. What was going on for you? And he's like, actually, I didn't say that. I just said, I'd like to play football now. And, you ladies can join us. Something. Maybe some other story that might have been going on in that moment. So it's always good to hear what's going on. Or I could express, hey, Gopal, that actually really hurt me or whatever. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize. Sometimes it's nice to actually go back into the scenario, and with a reasonable person, you may be able to resolve that in a sort of Vaishnava type way. There are other people, maybe with different personalities, where it doesn't resolve in the same way. So it's like one has to choose, where we can go back in. Often with a good friend, it's very important to go back and have those conversations. If you're just repressing, it's all good, my fault, didn't mean to, then the same problem may happen again. They may do it again and you don't know. Somebody told me one problem for them was that whenever they met their friend, they're always 30 minutes late. Always 30 minutes late, and you're like, I'm always on time. Why do I always have to wait? So it began to build up for a problem with them. It's just a small thing, a bit anger, and then are you looking at? You have also.
Being on time is like the biggest issue of bus tour. It's like I don't know, just a bus tour thing.
It's not a bus tour thing. It's like a devotee timing thing too. It's like a whole. It's extreme. Yeah, but it's usual. Huh? One doesn't get up. One has to wait for the other. It's generally. It's okay, but you have this. Are you getting in? Do you get in trouble? You get in trouble. Somehow.
Yeah, our bus driver, he gets a little bit upset when we're not on time for our scheduled, hours of driving.
How does he deal with it?
He eats ice cream. We buy him ice cream.
Very, very nice, huh? Very nice. Eat
that
ice cream. That
should be its own separate one.
Yeah, this is like eat ice cream. So here we have nice prasada made by our Prabhupada disciple, so it's like eat ice cream or pizza. There were demands for pizza today with a new oven. So this also is like the eating of prasadam sometimes also helps us to burn away some of that fire of digestion, can burn away that fire, somebody says. Gita?
A lot of the times it's not like productive if you start accusing the other person, like you did this and you heard me like this. So I find it like easier if you focus on yourself and like communicate more from your perspective, like saying, I felt like this when you did this to me. Then they're gonna feel more like compassion, I guess.
Yeah, it's always much better to like speak on your own perspective rather than, in English we say, jump down someone's throat. You did this and why that and how this and don't you know you're always late for the bus and why you. So it's like much easier to be like, okay, if we don't, I don't know, if you don't come on time, then you have to buy me ice cream or something. Is much better. Otherwise, I'm going to be very angry at you. Might work better than the other way around. This communication is very important, Gita, extremely important. Sometimes as Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, it's just learning to open up to one another. I think this idea of revealing one's mind in confidence doesn't necessarily just mean that you try to think of a Krishna Leela pastime to speak to. You know, we have to go deeper sometimes in our relationships. Sometimes the deepest moments that we might have in our spiritual lives is when we overcome any problems that we're going through. It might be whatever it might be. You know, that japa or other people. You have to go for your service, I assume. So and this communication, what do we do when the communication goes wrong? What do? We tried. I went to Gopal. Yeah? And then he started yelling at me and said, "Oh, what's my problem?" So can you give him that? Sorry. Mute up.
If someone's just being like that, then there's like, I guess you can take time from them. Sometimes a break from a relationship can be healthy.
Yes.
That's one solution.
Healthy break. Also, like, it's also formative years. Sometimes it might just be that different things are going on, right? And we have difficulties trying to manage to give people. I think compassion also comes with giving people some distance, space, just to find themselves. You know, not necessarily being like, to be careful of not this, it's all my fault, but more, okay, they need some space right now, maybe I give myself space, and maybe at some point it gets better, you know. Other times it just may be different personalities. I mean, there may have been some clashes on the bus tour, or has it been also harmonious? Harmonious? Yeah? I mean, you seem like a pretty relaxed group, so last time I think there were a few more. Okay, you don't go into it, yeah. That's nice. But it's very nice if you can sort of stay together as a group and then have the centerpiece as being Krishna, and Kirtan is often the main strive behind that. And with the bus driver, you already... Henrik?
What I experienced since I'm here, here in Simhachalam, I'm here since 5 months. At the pot washing, most of the times I get angry because of very little things like those flies, which don't react when you try to put them somewhere else, and somehow. It's the most relieving to me when I'm angry to say, okay, I give it back to you. So I give it back to Krishna, and this somehow feels the most relieving to me.
Like almost like an internal prayer, like you give that back to you, Krishna.
Yes.
I'm feeling like this, I'm getting irritated, angry at this, what I'm doing.
Yeah, it has this this effect of, I don't know the English word, but
Was this in Deutsch? What's it Deutsch? No, Wirtschaft, like what is the Deutsch, what's the German word?
Anerkennen, die Wut anerkennen.
You're German. What is her? Say that. No, but in translation? Acknowledge.
Yeah.
Acknowledge, okay.
It's there's this sometimes we're a lot in strategies how to deal with the anger, but when the anger is still there, it's like destroying all our strategies because it's not acknowledged, and somehow this little prayer has this part also of acknowledging. And
this acknowledging is very nice, this point.
Yes, and this is also very fast. And in the past, I had some friend who we had this strategy when we were angry. We just said, "Hey, I need, I don't know what
Time
we
out?
said." Huh?
Time out?
No, I need, I don't know. And then we just said it to each other and looked at each other, and no one said anything. And somehow this made this anger
Dissipate, it sort of...
Yeah, not like diffusing it, like taking it away, but somehow it got acknowledged also by this. Yes, and for me, most strategies you can use, like 90%, is just are just effective when the anger is already gone away.
So you're saying, what do you use when you're directly at that point
Yeah,
that you're very angry?
This is the most, because in this moment I want to be angry, or I feel like there
Yeah.
is some.
You feel like you have the right to be angry. at that
Yeah,
moment.
and I don't want to eat ice cream now. And this also, when I think about it, when you're really in this angry mood, and then you go eating ice cream, this is dysfunctional, actually.
There are certain situations that are natural. Like, for example, when I was 18, I lost my grandmother. So meaning she passed away. Yeah, she raised me. She passed away basically in front of me. And there are 7 stages of bereavement, and one of them is anger. So the anger is really real. It's not like somebody just stepped on your foot. It's like, how can this loved one be taken away from me? How can this happen to me? How could Krishna do this to me if he loves me? Why would he take her away when I'm still young? What would happen? So this level of processing is very, very important. I have to say, at 18, I repressed. Yeah, I was told, just, God has his reasons. You should understand that. That's karma, blah, 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 blah. So it was a lot of repression. Around 5, 6, 7 years later, when I was able to have a counseling session, she spoke about it like frozen bereavement. So it just frozen, the emotion. We have what they call also fight or flight, but there's also freeze. I don't know if you've heard of that. You're confronted with a situation, you fight, you run away, or you freeze. Actually, most of us fall into the freeze situation. We don't know what to do with it, so we just stop in this moment. And in that moment, when I learned to deal with it in my 20s, I used to annoy everybody by my favorite Srila Prabhupada quote, which was, in order to be Krishna conscious, we must first be conscious, yeah? And this is that part of acknowledging, Henrik, that you speak about, that in this moment where we say, okay, whatever it is, I don't mean to be angry, I don't know what's going on. With this case of my grandmother and her passing, I needed to understand more about spiritual life. I needed to understand why this had happened at this point, what it was all about. My Guru Maharaj, Sachinanda Swami, once said that when you lose somebody, it is like you're in a battle, like on Kurukshetra, and somebody has beheaded them right in front of you. Like, this emotion is really deep. It cuts really to a deep part of one. So it's not that, okay, it's all fine, it's all good. It's not that Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is saying, I'm all good with everything that's happening. At some moment, he's really bewildered, right? He doesn't know what to do. He's really just wants to run away. A lot of emotions are coming up. To the moment when we acknowledge what is happening and go deeper into it to see what's happening, many more things can come up. Like from your example, it could be many things come up. It could be the pot washing. But it could be after a while you think, actually what it is that I just don't want to be doing pot washing. So it might be that you need to speak to temple commander or look at something else or blah, blah. Or it might be actually I love this service. Just these flies or whatever are too much. Sometimes it means that we go a little more deeper into the situation of where we are. Sometimes I find quite a few of you have spoken to me about just some utter frustration and anger at yourself for not knowing what you're going to do with the rest of your life. That in your 20s you should know it somehow. You know, that somehow you should know and you're looking and you don't know, so the only one that you think to blame is yourself. And it doesn't really work like this, right? It actually works as, what's going on? What do I need? And practically actually also going through the different levels. Don't get me wrong, Henrik, at that moment where you're feeling the anger, it's very good to acknowledge, I'm angry. But then it's like a choice. What am I going to do with this anger? If you're Dhruv Maharaj, you have to fight, go ahead. You need to fight. But most of us in this situation, like Mirabai was saying, have to walk away from the situation most often with our emotions and then come back in with something or other, some sort of level of understanding of what we have to do. One advice was to walk away at trigger points. So I had a trigger point a couple of weeks ago. My trigger point was when too many people non-stop asked me for instruction, one after the other, because we had the kinder camp that I take care of, and it was just like non-stop, you know, maybe like 10 plus people in the space of an hour. And so I can't walk away. What do you also do in that situation? Give me one moment. I go, someone get her a microphone, please. Who is the mic? Yeah. What's your name? Radhika. Radhika Macri. So in that moment, it's a case of I had to suppress so I don't let it out on the wrong person, and then in that moment open it up again. You know, it's like time, place, and circumstance. Radhika.
I just have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tend to walk away, isn't that seen as avoiding the problem? And like, how can you like confront it then if you just keep walking away?
So it's a good point, Radhika. I didn't mean that you walk away, end of story. I meant like in the case of Mirabai. You walk away, she knows that she's angry. She's acknowledged it. So she's conscious that she's angry. She has tears in her eyes. She's still feeling angry. Then it's a choice of what you do. Like at that moment, it's advised by many people, punch a pillow, get it out, get it out some way. It might be that you need to get a book, write it down. Like Sandipani Muni says, you may decide to put on some calming music. It may be that you need to process the emotion of what's going on. When you are angry and that a circumstance doesn't require immediate violence, like in the case of Hiranyakashipu or with Dhruv Maharaj, the idea of walking away is just to become calm. So that you're not, the anger is seen as violence. So you're not just pushing it back. You know, if someone comes to you in anger, you're not pushing it back on the other person. You're trying to diffuse the situation. And then with intelligence, when anger comes in, intelligence is lost, right? So in that moment where you can diffuse it for yourself in whichever way that you need, be it a kirtan, be it, as Gita said, with japa, be it with relaxing music, whatever way that works for you. And in your life, you will have to try different things, right? In that moment after, you then have to ask yourself, and this is very important, am I still angry at this person or at this situation? If I'm angry, if you are angry, why am I angry at the situation? Like with this case of my grandmother, when I lost her at 18, it was my first death. I had no experience of what was going on for me. She was basically like my mother, my first guru, like a lot. So I had to process why, what's going on. 18, do I really believe in everything I'm told? Do I really believe in life after death? Isn't it just about now? Like a lot of things were going on for me, Well, I'd like to believe, but it seems a bit mystical, or, many things that I had to push myself to then get to that point of overcoming the anger. In that case, I had told you that journey of internal anger of bereavement took me about 10 years, Radhika. Meaning there are some things that will cut so deep inside that it takes longer to process. But it doesn't mean that it stops. And does it? It says here, anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. When the anger towards bereavement and people dying for me was so strong, it did stop me on my process of spiritual life. Not completely, but just there was a part of me that was cut off internally. Externally, I could still perform. So it's this. Is that clear? So you're never talking walk away and then you're fine, everything is good. Sometimes it might be like this. The person wasn't worth it, sort of, you get on with it. But other times it's sort of, a process goes along, Your name, Prabhu? Balaram. Radhika Balaram. Okay, Balaram. Do you have a Krishna here?
What if two people are arguing, and they're both getting angry, but once one realize and process the anger, and one doesn't? What should we do in these situations?
I've been in that situation. Who's been in that situation? You're both yelling at each other and you realize this isn't working, right? So say if it's yourself, it's better if it's yourself because some consciousness comes in. This person's still yelling. There's different techniques that they say. You feel as it probably is not helping. And they're still in that moment, so the anger. Normally you give them a warning like, Prabhu, this is not helping the situation. We both need to calm down and then we can speak again. And they say if the person is so angry, you try to repeat it 3 times, and then you try to walk away from the situation. Because you might say, Balaram, I might be like, come on, let's not argue. And you're like, no, I'm not arguing with you. I just want you to know my point. I'm like, no problem. It's not helping the situation. And then again, you come again. I said, okay, we just both need to calm down, and then we talk about it. No, I want to talk about it now. No problem. Let's both calm down and talk about the situation. I'm just telling you, I need to walk away. give me some time out, then we'll come back together. It's very hard. It's very hard, but it's very good if that one person realizes, hopefully it's yourself, and then you go ahead. I've been in a position where people have yelled at me, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm just dying to like roar back. Yeah, because it's been in a temple. So I do things like I just sort of push my finger, like stop, you're not going to feel good about this, you're not going to feel good about this. You know, and then the ego kicks in. Oh no, but you're the weaker person. That's why you're not saying anything. You're like, no. Krishna doesn't want this right now. This isn't going to help anyone if I yell back. So like this, okay. Mostly I've been yelled at by Prabhus actually, funnily enough. So I'm like, okay, Prabhu, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And I walked away from the situation. Have I gone away and cried? Yes. Have I left the situation? 50% of the time. The other 50%, which is much more effective, is if I've gone back to the Prabhu or someone around the situation and say, hey, this is no way to deal with each other as Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. This is no way. Has it been hard? Because I'm a Kshatriya type, I could yell back if I wanted to. Very hard. But afterwards, one felt better, that I just didn't react. If I looked at the situation of that person, that's the best way. They were looking, they were like someone is looking for an argument. They're looking, to like push you. And then Krishna somehow seems to be testing. So in that moment where you decide, okay, I'm going to be the better person here, I'm going to try to be a good devotee and walk away. You're not cheating anyone, you're not letting anyone down, you're just giving them time to diffuse their anger. I've been in a situation when people have been angry, they've yelled at me, then they've gone to the superiors and said, blah, 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 blah. And then the superior has a choice. If he's not balanced, he'll come and yell at me too. That's happened to me before. So I got yelled at by one person, I got yelled at by the second person. Or they'll come and say, what happened there? And you explain the situation, you have somebody fair, and you're like, what? But they just came and said this. I said, yeah, they come crying to you, but they were yelling at me. Well, what should I do? I didn't yell back at them. Ask them what I said. So it's a case of trying to find a way in. In a temple, perhaps amongst one another, you will find that you all come from different circumstances. I'm a designer, graphic designer, as my profession. So when I was working in a design circle, when I'm with other artists, there is some sort of flow and an understanding. But in an environment where our main focus is Krishna, it may be that there's all sorts of personalities, engineering, sort of physical types, deal with problems different ways, so the clashes are much more easily come across. And therefore we have to learn much more easier to negotiate our way through. Mostly the designers I know, we just want to smooth it all out, make it all right, so we have to push it, speaking it through, but yeah. It's hard. This is like a test for life. I hope Krishna doesn't test you in the next moment, Balaram. You have strength, right? So you're in a situation, right? That it could be for any of us. What do we do? What do we do in that moment? And why? Why does it even affect our spiritual life? And I'm speaking about something emotional almost, something otherwise, anger. Why is anger, why does it go against our spiritual life? What happens in that moment where we just let loose on our anger? What do we do? I'm trying to remember your name. Tell me again. Gopal. Yeah. Gopal, got it.
One thing that came to mind is offending people, and offending the devotees is one of the worst things. And just being in general.
So we talk about Vaishnava aparadha. I'm always a bit nervous to speak about this word because it was like this. But basically what you do when you yell at someone, you hurt them. You hurt them, and naturally, in that way, you've hurt their feelings. Here we use this word, offensive. You somehow gone along and pushed along an emotion, whatever it may be, by this sort of emotion, whatever way. We have also, in modern terms, passive aggression. Huh? There's also, I'm not angry at you, but get out of my way. Like, are you angry? No, I'm not angry. I'm all good, everything fine. So it's also like it comes out in different ways where people can say things. So we just, to acknowledge it, to be conscious of it, we can then deal with it. But like this, when we push that on someone, then normally we need something to rectify it. Yeah, so some of the devotees say we'll go and pray by Tulasi Devi now. She forgives even if we kill a brahmana, so let's go and pray by Tulasi Devi. But actually, we can do that. It's very helpful. But it's very good and very humbling to go to that Vaishnavi and say, I'm so sorry. It was a bad day. It was a bad moment. This happened to me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for what I did. And hopefully the other person forgives in that moment, right? What else do we do to our spiritual lives if we just act in anger?
Maybe because anger is such an all-surrounding emotion. When you're really angry, and then you're just so full of the anger, that's also something that makes you forget Krishna. So you
Totally. If people have had that moment where they're all consuming anger, I would say I'm a pretty calm person generally, so it's like hard. But my little boy, when he was 2 years old, accidentally a brahmachari trapped all 4 fingers in one of the doors there. And there is that saying, like incredible green with anger, huh? Because you see, so it's the first time I saw green, I saw him and I was pushing, but I could see another force was behind that door. You see, again, no muscles. But that anger was out so much that I just pushed this door open, and I was just like, you trapped his fingers, for the last 20 seconds, however long in this door you could see that they were in this. So in that moment, again, that was the use where their anger came in, but in that moment I forgot what I was saying, because you forget completely where you're at. I'm a mother, so I had to protect my child. But afterwards, it took some time to calm down in that situation. Because the brahmachari said, no, I didn't do it. I didn't trap his fingers. I was just like, you can still see the dent on them. I had no time to deal with him. I had to put some ice on my boy's fingers, And Krishna's kind. He sent another brahmachari. I said, I'm really sorry that happened. Then the temple president somehow heard of it, and the same brahmachari said, I'm really sorry about what I did, and my boy was able to speak. He's like, it was Tim. He trapped my fingers in the door. I was like, okay, Char, it's all right. He said, sorry. He's like, yes, I'm just saying no, mommy, it was him. His fingers were fine, everything, it's nice. Could I see Krishna? No, I just could see my boy. Did I have to calm down after? Yes. Because that, you're like consumed in that moment. And in that moment, if you let that anger consume you, and it's not a situation like this, then your whole time you wake up, we've seen it, you see an angry person? They wake up, they're angry. They do something. Everything they sometimes can be angry. All these moments like this. Leave me alone. I'm angry, or whatever. I'm just down. I'm this. That emotion has to come out in some way. If you push it down, it may just become, I'm just so useless, I can't do anything in spiritual life. It's me. Radhika.
Also, I feel like when I'm angry, I tend to regret a lot of the things I do. So
you've acted out in that anger, and you
out of
exactly.
impulse.
It's horrible.
So
regret is a horrible emotion.
Yeah.
You sit there and you're like, oh God, damn it, and you just regret and guilt, and that can go on far longer, right? Than even the anger went on. So this is the main reason of stepping out and not acting on that anger. To be like, there's 1 or 2 situations in the last 12 years that I did act in anger, and I regretted them. They were not even major for anyone else, but I regretted that I lost my sort of self-control in that moment, and I just had to respond to that situation. My friends or others said, yeah, but it was reasonable. But still, it was a personal thing for myself. I still don't want to respond in that way. So that's the point that we have to realize we have a choice. Even in that moment where you think, I want to be angry, I can't control it. We can, by the Lord's grace. He has given us power for so many things, right? In that moment where we acknowledge, I'm not sure, I feel like I have to be angry, but we go to, especially in the Shingadev or Krishna, help, 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 help. It's also a part of our surrender, right? That we stop. In that moment, what do you do if a good friend of yours is angry? They're like this. What's your name? Ananga? Ananya. When we cannot see, but say you have a good friend who's like this. You see they're not thinking of Krishna in that moment, and they don't want to, but it's just anger. What can you do? Because you're friends with each other. You can see. You have a what do you do? Nice Gopal, huh? Just like a nice Gopal. They're good. They're angry. Good friend of yours. But maybe he's being honest. Maybe he's being honest. Not my problem. Not my. Give them a hug. But they're like, yeah, you're not seeing a crowd. They're like this, huh? Give them a hug. That's like a nice Sunday one. What's your name? I haven't heard from you today. Veda.
I just, when he said give them a hug, I was reminded of my brother when he used to have like temper tantrums or like get really angry. She would just like hold him basically.
Yeah.
And that helped. So
if you have a really good friend, I have a good Italian friend. She's very good at being angry, very nice. And I said, stop it, I'll just hug you, you know. I'll even sit on you. I'm like, just stop it, you know. And it made her break out into a smile. So it can work if it's a really good relationship.
Sometimes when like I have a friend who's angry, I just say, okay, let's sit down and just vent. Like I'm just gonna listen. And then I don't really take what they're saying too seriously, because I'm just giving space for them to take it out.
So you give them permission to let it out, basically.
Yeah.
That's very good. I think it's very good if you have a friend like this, Gopa, to say, don't get angry at me, but maybe you can just let it out. But, you know, as long as, you know, you don't start getting on me, you know what I mean? So you're basically protecting yourself. You're saying, as long as it's not to do with me, you need to let that anger out. Let's talk about this. Just tell me what's going on for you, you know? Especially with friends who don't like to let it out, but you can see it's affecting them for some time. It could be like a relationship breakup. It could be anything, you know, but sometimes that emotion needs to come out. Nice. So it's like prasadam time. It's very nice. I hope that was somehow useful for you. The main point, Nekopal, is that sometimes it could be someone is angry and you're like, oh, what's their problem, you know? What are they angry for? Could even be they're always angry. But often these are the people that need the most sort of maybe TLC, sort of in our Vaishnava talk, compassion, sort of space that someone is listening to them, kindness, other nice qualities that will help them open up to speak about it. Distancing is good if they're letting it out on you, you know, that's not nice. But if they just need maybe someone to get them or to understand them, then it's good to be that understanding ear. You know, or you just send Sandeepan, you know, Sandeep to give him a hug or something. You know, so it's a balance up, right? Okay. Any more questions? Thoughts on this topic? The last point here, this very, very last point, was it's a very funny example that's given, not funny, but example about the snake. Because the example of the snake is not that he just said, you know, you bite people and they die, stop doing it. He then came back when the snake said, people are not treating me very well. He says, expand your hood as if you're going to bite, then they will go away. And it says, similarly, devotee is always non-violent. But where there is, then later on, where there is mischief, he should not forget to become angry, at least for the time being. How do we relate to this? What is this expanding our hood? We're going to hiss at people? Yogamaya was first. Yogamaya.
To like use the anger to like protect yourself and others, but like without it like completely leashing out, but just like to protect your boundaries.
So I'm like, Yogamaya, what's going on and this, and who do you think you are, and you're too young to have a boyfriend, or this, blah. Like, you know, you're only 28 years old. Come on, you know, you can't do that. You have to marry him tomorrow if you're going to do that. You know, like, how are you going to protect yourself when I come at you like that? I would never be like that, by the way. Just
This feels like it's overstepping the boundaries. I would like be like, okay, it's nice that you think that way. But I disagree. And then just distance myself.
Distance yourself. I would say even more you'd be like, you know, you do have maybe the right to say, Gopigita, thank you for your words, but you're not my mother. She's at the back of the room over here. You're not my mother. And actually, that's a little hurtful. So I'd prefer, if you think like that, maybe you keep your opinion to yourself. I don't mean in a bad way. You're not saying it bad. You're just saying it in a way to protect yourself. You know, a little bit like it's not really your place, sort of to say. Like, sometimes once somebody was getting on my case because I was female, you know? Like, come on now, probably. Sorry for my birth. What am I going to say? No, actually, it's who I am, you know? Please, keep your opinion to yourself, that's fine. I understand you have your opinion. I don't share it. But that's not how, we behave with one another. So sometimes one has to be a little bit like, okay. Like for me, when Balaram was in this example, it was like, Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu, that's enough now. And sometimes you say, that's enough now, like pings one back to say, okay, I've just been yelling at her, just been yelling at some random person for no reason. It's enough just to stop the situation, that you go away, Sort of from, Sometimes I found if I say, sorry, forgive me for my offenses, when they're like this, they feel a right to continue in that moment. You might say sorry afterwards to yourself, like if I've done anything. But, so, so it's a balance up of the situation. What do you think? That boundaries are very important in that way. In sticking up for yourself.
Yes.
I think it's great that you...
No, I agree. I just never said that I'm good at setting boundaries.
It's funny, I'm also not great with boundaries, but enough situations push one ahead that one has to set them there. The situation. Gopal, did you have something to add? And then, thank you for being so interactive.
I think, this correlates quite well with the Narendra Muni story with the snake. I got reminded of when Srila Prabhupada was in, I think, Melbourne in 73, I think. He was giving a class in a university, and the university students were being, a lot of them were being very non-receptive, and they were being really disrespectful. Some of them were doing starting music in the hall, or and talking back and all this stuff. And I think Madhvisa Prabhu or something, after a long, asking, please stop and whatnot, he said, you are the intelligentsia of Australia if you cannot act respectfully. And he said some really threatening words, and basically, put his hood up. He was like, we will not take this seriously. And then also outside, this violence was happening, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, he was like, we will meet you guys with where you are at, with disrespect. And I guess that kind of reminded me of that, and standing up for themselves.
Yeah, so you're not yelling, you're not getting angry, but you're just setting the rules out. And
I don't think they followed that so well, because I also think the story ends that outside that the devotees actually started fist fighting the people.
They started fist fighting. Yeah. But it's a good example of how they were fist fighting with the students. Yeah.
Once an older devotee was, not for really a good reason, was getting very angry and shouting at me. And it may not work in all circumstances, but I basically just lowered my head and put my hands like this and didn't say anything and didn't look at the person. And then after a few seconds, they kind of got bored of shouting at me because I was just doing that.
Very nice.
And then it ended very quickly. So sometimes if people are angry and they're not reasonable, and then it will extinguish that energy.
Yeah.
And I think a very good way to deal with anger also is controlling your breathing, like pranayama.
Like pranayama, yeah, this is very helpful.
Because when you control how you breathe, then you can influence your mood and your heart rate, and you can calm down. So conscious breathing, when you feel you're becoming angry, then you immediately do conscious pranayama to reduce that stress. And
this is very helpful. I also did pranayama. Pranayama is very helpful for this, to lower it down. And there's also, if you want to directly approach it, also this lion breathing, where you let out this emotion as well. So there's two ways of dealing with it. Very nice examples. Basically, Gopal, also in this example there, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you learn from the situation where people haven't got it right with anger. Sometimes, do I want to be like this too? What could we do better from this situation? We have so many examples of war and other things where you think, okay, is this how I want to go? Is this where I want to go? We have a choice in our lives, right? So that's the part there. Keeping Krishna always in the middle helps. Sometimes I've been there, and it's been, yelling. I didn't fold my hands, but some years back, some person, everywhere I went, she would almost get angry at me. So I didn't know what to do. I just had Prabhupada's garland, and I just gave it to her and walked away. And she remembered it 10 years later. She's like, I was so angry, and I always took it out of you, and you just gave me a garland. And I was like, what do you do? What can you say? I could see that she wasn't in a good place. This was also this part. You see that when someone is being like this or responding to you, often it's not you, it's them. They're in that space. But your position in it is how much will you let your karma or other things be affected, your spiritual path, right? This bowing down is really like a sign of humility. It's like quite nice. Because I think you did it genuinely. I've had people sometimes be angry, and I've just stopped them in conversation. I had it once a university teacher. And I'm like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I think he wasn't expecting a student to turn around and ask him. And he was like, no, actually, I'm not okay. I had a car accident today, and this happened. And then just let him speak. And then we had a perfectly good tutorial afterwards. But it was like, sometimes one does things which somehow diffuses the situation. So, yeah. You don't want to say anything. You do want to say something.
I didn't have anything to say necessarily, but there's also realizing, because you even just going to school, going to college, I have lots of professors that they have there's people who have their own internal demons, and you just have to recognize that, and it kind of helps not letting it get to you, because a lot of times it can get to you, and then you have that bug, and then you're mad. So kind of realizing that people are going through their own thing helps you manage dealing with them. So
definitely, yeah, seeing from the other point. I think it's also hard sometimes as devotees, we can be extremely sensitive. So we can see someone's talking, some scientific something or other, and you're like, God, he's going through a bad day. You're seeing something else that's going on that they're not even presenting themselves with. For me personally, I just have to be like, okay, I'm just taking this knowledge for him, but I won't take the rest in this moment, right? So you just have to give yourself enough distance to be able to deal with what's going on. In that way, I think it's also showing respect to devotees and then non-devotees as well, in terms of following our own way. But it is hard sometimes, because first you may see that, and you're like, God, what's happening? So sometimes I also think it's nice to count ourselves lucky, that we have a way forward with Krishna consciousness. We have a way that we can see something deeper behind what's going on. For 90% of the people out there, they don't have a deeper meaning in life, right? Whatever happened in the days, that's it. Nice. What's your name? Santosh. Thank you very much, Santosh. Oh, Charu, thank you that you came now. It's my boy. Charu, what do you think about being angry? Is it good or not so good? Or is it okay? You're not sure? Because it's difficult timing. It comes with after we finish. The summary is that sometimes in life we'll be presented with so many situations amongst other Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. What do? Krishna will present ourselves normally with a situation where we may be angry, but the anger may come in all sorts of different forms. It may be suppressed, it may be this, we may get it wrong. The point is that if we put some consciousness and prayer towards our situation in life, then everything can be overcome. The worst thing that you can do in life is just be to live a life in regret and in guilt. Krishna forgives us for so many things. We just have to reach out to him and the other Vaishnavas in this point, right? To also overcome and get through it. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being very, responsive. No, that's not the right word. Interactive. I was trying to look for another word. Receptive. Nice. I hope you enjoy your time here in Simhachalam. Were you all here before? Who's here for the first time? You're here for the first time? You're here for the first time. But we've met before. Oh? We've met before though, right? I was there last year, but I've been here 12, 13 years. Don't know. Anyway, it's all right. Nice. But yeah, I really hope that you enjoy your time. Please, anything troubling you or helping you in your life, give it over to Lord Nishingadev. Sachinanda Swami says that this form of the Lord, he responds very quickly to prayer. So be very careful of what you pray for, but don't hold back in praying to him also. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, it's 9:30. 9:30.
Simho Mahasimho